Noon,
How are
Charlie.
you today?
Fine, thank you.
Mary, I understand that you were brought up in the Bronx until you were about 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And where'd you move to after that?
To Yonkers.
What was your maiden name, Mary?
Casada. Mary Casada.
Mary Casada. Casada means the cream, doesn't it?
Cream of the crop.
Cream of the crop, cream of Southern Italy, correct? Whereabouts did you move when you moved to Yonkers?
To McLean Avenue.
What year was that?
1936, 37, 38. I guess
Oh,
around 38.
Before the war.
Yeah, before the war.
I bet you Yonkers was quite rural in those years.
Yes, it was very rural.
Did they still have the trolley cars back then?
We had trolley car on Yonkers Avenue, but we had club transportation that went to White Plains.
Oh, sorry about that.
Don't you remember club?
I should have realized it was a very up-and-coming town at the time.
Of course.
Whereabouts did you move to in Yonkers?
To McLean Avenue, then to Cox, and then to Kimball.
Oh, okay.
Kimball Terrace, Kimball Avenue.
How old were you when the war started in December 7th, 1941?
In 1941, I was just 16.
Do you remember where you were when you heard the news come over?
Mm-hmm. We were on our way. We were in the car driving down on the Grand Concourse to a wedding in Manhattan.
The Triborough Bridge was built then?
We didn't go over the Triborough, I don't think. We went down. It probably took the 3rd Avenue Bridge.
Oh, okay. What time of day was it? Do you remember?
12, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, something like that. About 2, I guess it was.
What did you hear? You heard the Japs?
We heard that Pearl Harbor had been bombed. We went down to the wedding, and it was a young fella getting married. So all the young people were talking about probably being drafted into the service. So.
Well, those must have been very hectic years. With the communication being as slow as they were compared to today.
Right.
How soon after you heard the news did you get any photographs of what transpired in Pearl Harbor?
I don't remember. In fact, we had saved all the papers, and then when we moved to our house here, we decided to get rid of all the garbage that we had accumulated.
You got rid of all those newspapers? You showed all the articles? I'll bet you're sorry now.
Oh, my kids are sorry because they said I threw out all their baseball cards that are worth a lot of money now. They could have bought a house. It was a down payment on a house for them. But you couldn't keep everything.
That's for sure. So you said you were 16 when you heard the news.
Mm-hmm.
What did you tend to do during the war effort? How did you contribute to the war effort, or intend to contribute?
Well, I graduated from high school that June, and then I wasn't...
41?
42.
Oh,
June of
okay.
42.
Okay.
I couldn't go into nursing because I was too young. They didn't take you till you were 18. So I went to work at New York Hospital as a messenger. And I delivered I had to take records to court. So I took records to court and that. Then I got a job in the accounting department. And then it was time, I was 18, and it was time for me to go into nursing, which I did in March of 44.
March of 44, you were 18 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
March of 44, you joined, what, the Army?
No,
Cadets?
United States Cadet Corps, Nurse Cadet Corps.
Nurse cadets. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so how many years would you have to would you have served before you completed your nursing tour?
You had to stay in, I think, say that you would stay in at least 6 months or a year after you finished because they paid for your education. So I was finished in 47, and you had to stay in a little longer.
Okay.
But the war was over by then, so.
But did any of the boys come home into the hospital you were in?
No, because it was a city hospital. I worked at Bellevue. It was a city hospital.
Is that a picture of you?
That's a picture of me.
Hold it up and
That's a cadet uniform.
Alrighty. How old were you there? 18?
Probably 18, 19.
Very nice. When did you realize I've interviewed your husband already?
Yes,
When did you meet your husband? Before the war, after the war?
after the war.
Oh, after the war.
After the war. We were young. He was one place, I was somewhere else. We didn't meet till 47, 48.
All right, then before we get on to that, tell me a little bit about what you were feeling and what you felt what the war was going on during the years you were in the cadet corps.
I really can't say. I don't remember too much. I remember D-Day because I'd wake my fellow classmates up and I knocked at their doors and I told them to get up. We usually say like rise and shine, it's time to get up. But then I added it was D-Day. So everybody was excited then.
Did you know
doing
any,
something.
Did you know any of the boys that were
In D-Day?
the invasion?
No, but a girl I went to high school with, her boyfriend was at Hickam Field, Pearl Harbor Day.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Did he survive?
He survived, yeah. He came back, but it was a few days before they got word that he was okay.
What was the general consensus, since you were down in Manhattan at the time? When D-Day occurred, what was the crowds like? Were there any crowds out in the streets? Newspapers?
The newspapers around, but I don't remember because when you worked different shifts, you weren't out that much. But when the war was over, that day we got off because I was working in the operating room, and they closed the operating room, and they gave people extra days off. That day we went up to Fifth Avenue in Times Square, and everybody was very, very excited, very happy, kissing one another, talking to one another, papers all over the street. You were walking like in ankle-deep papers. Yeah. Newspapers all over the place.
That was VJ Day?
It was VJ.
Okay. What happened on VE Day?
That I don't remember either. It probably was very quiet. It was, just another day probably. D-Day was exciting because you were doing the invasion and things were getting started.
Well, you and I both know what D-Day was. Can you explain to your descendants what D-Day was?
That was the Normandy invasion.
What day?
June the 6th,
Year?
1944.
Okay, that's when the biggest armada
Invaded, yeah.
Okay.
And Bill and I took a trip to Normandy. Two summers, not last summer, the summer before. When we went with the ABA to London and we took a trip over to Paris. And we went to Normandy.
Really?
Yes, and
Bill wasn't in that theater?
No, he wasn't in that theater, but we were there.
Okay.
So we went to Paris and we wanted to go to Normandy. So we did go to visit the beaches at Normandy, went to Port ad Hoc, where the Rangers went up, and we lost a lot of people there. I went to the cemetery there. So we went to a museum. It was a tour, 14 hours. I mean, you took the tour at 7 in the morning, came back 11 o'clock at night.
Oh, wow.
It was a long day.
So I mentioned VE Day. What was VE Day?
That was when the war ended in Europe. That was in May.
Okay. Do you remember the transmission when Roosevelt died?
No, because I had gone to the movies that day. And when I came out, we saw the headlines and people were talking about it. They hadn't said anything in the movie while the movie was going on, but then we found out when we came out, and everybody was very sad because when I went back to the residence, everybody was, talking about it, what was going to happen now.
Where was this headline? You went to the movies down at Times Square?
I don't know where I went to movies. I probably went to the movies around 23rd Street.
23rd?
Probably it was local.
And they had the local papers out there.
Well, I don't know if the local papers were out yet, but I mean, when we got back, everybody was talking about it because you heard on the radio, because we didn't have television then.
No TV?
No TV.
Oh, heavens forbid.
we only had the radio. No TV.
So we know what D-Day is, we know what VE Day is. What is VJ Day? You mentioned that.
VJ Day was when the Japs surrendered.
The war came to
The war came to a crushing end.
Oh, I bet you that's when the celebrations really went wild.
That's when they went wild.
Yeah.
Times Square and Fifth Avenue covered with newspapers, papers all over the place. Everybody was happy and singing, running up and down. It was a lot of fun.
Remember that famous
Picture.
picture that the Navy guy was that Bill?
No. Didn't know Bill then. He wasn't back from the service yet.
All right, so after the war ended, and now you say you got out of nursing and you got out of school in '47. Did they still require you to serve the time in the service?
We stayed.
Yeah.
Stayed. Some of the girls in my class, the last 6 months of service, that was before we graduated,
Right.
some of them went to VA hospitals. Somebody went out to Topeka, Kansas to the Meninger Clinic.
Right.
A few other places they could serve, and I guess in visiting nurse and stuff. I stayed at the hospital. I didn't go, but a few classmates did go. And they came back for graduation, and that was over. It was finished. But we didn't. I mean, everybody graduated. You put your time in, and then you finished.
Right. At what point in time did you meet your husband, Bill?
Not till about 48. It had to be 48 because we went to Europe. I think in 47, I think we went, my mother and father and I. My father had never been back, so he wanted to go back. His father had died during the war, so he wanted to go back.
Your father was a native of Italy?
Italy. And my mother was too, but she came here when she was a year old, so she celebrated her first birthday on the boat.
Well, what was it like when you went back in '47? I mean, that had to have been interesting to see.
That was interesting because you went by boat, and it was like, it wasn't private cabins. You had like dorms. You were sometimes 10 or something in a room, just beds there and stuff. It was fine. It was very nice. We got to Naples, but then you had to arrange your transportation back, and you had to go to the American Embassy to confirm your date to come back. And the interesting thing was there was a fascist leader. What was his name? I forgot what his name was, but he was shot in Rome.
Mussolini.
No, it wasn't Mussolini. No, not Mussolini. He was a communist leader.
Okay.
I forgot what his name was, but he had been shot in Rome, and I had gone someplace with my aunt up and down and stuff like that. We had been walking around in Naples, and then we came back to the hotel for lunch, and she had a godson who was in the police force, and he said to us, "You people better stay at the hotel." So we said, "No, we can go out for lunch." So my father and I were going back to the consulate to see about getting this letter so that we could book transportation back. And we were standing waiting for transportation, I guess a bus or something, and all of a sudden all these big trucks came, open trucks, and a lot of men got out of the back of the trucks. And this detective was with us. He grabbed my father and I by the hand. He said, "Let's go." And he took us by the hand. He hailed down a cab, a hansom cab with the horse, and took us back to the hotel. He said, "Stay in that hotel and don't you dare come out."
What was going on?
Well, because they were all uprisings, and they called the general strike, and they stopped all transportation in Italy because of somebody shooting this fella. So
For how long?
it was for a couple of days because we couldn't go anywhere, and then finally, when transportation was, they said you could go because we were going to go to my aunt's up near Rome. She lived near Rome. There was a bus station across to, like a chit, I think they called it, the service, like a Greyhound. And we finally got a passage on one of the buses, and we went up to my aunt's.
Were the towns from Rome south? Were they? What can you see the war ravaging of the towns?
You could see. We traveled a bit. Could see the train stations were. A lot of them had been bombed, and they were just being rebuilt and all. But other than that, we didn't see that much. I mean, because we did travel up and down quite a bit at that time. But the war had been over in Europe for 2 or 3 years by that time.
So the rebuilding of Europe was taking place?
When we were there, yeah.
This is about the time of the Berlin airlift when this was going on,
Well,
wasn't it?
I don't remember. We were home when the Berlin airlift was going on. I don't remember. We did some traveling because I wanted to see some relatives. So we traveled up and down. We went from Rome, Milan, Turin, went to Lake Como. We went down all the way south down to Bari. But we just were visiting different people that we knew. And Perugia, went to Perugia too, and Florence.
Had the economy of Italy came back in that relatively short period of time? Was still a lot of starvation or a lot of...
No, we didn't see starvation because there was a lot of things going on. We were with a lot of young people. We did a lot of, they had a lot of places where open air cafes and stuff where they had bands and you did dancing. So it was a very happy time because I met a lot of nice, happy people. And I went to Perugia. My godfather's brother lived there. So we had to bring him something. And he insisted that we come and we stay and all that. He had children that were older. Well, one was going to be an engineer, one was going to be a girl was going to be a school teacher, one son was a pharmacist, and one was going to be a doctor. And they were my age, a little older than I was. But they were very, very nice. They were very happy. The one son took me over to the university to meet people that he knew there. And everybody was happy. They were dancing, having parties. So they were all very happy about everything.
So the war really didn't affect the farm life or the farm economic
Well, these were no
life.
farms there. These were city
But
people.
The farm supported
They
the
supported things.
economy,
Oh yeah,
right?
because I don't recall anything about not having anything to eat.
Right.
I mean, we went to my father's hometown. We stayed at the priest's house. And the only thing they always said was, because we had pigeons or something to eat, and they said, didn't matter if it was a Friday or not to have fish. You ate, if you had the money and you got something good, you ate it that day. Didn't matter what day it was of the week. Because they said, as long as you got it, it was in that day, you picked that up. That's what you ate that day. You didn't worry about what day of the week it was.
So you didn't leave Italy then? You just stayed mainly in the Italian area?
Yeah, we went up and down visiting different relatives and things. Took the express train, all that, which was very nice, from Bari all the way up to Milan. It was a very nice train. It was, a few hours, whatever it was. It wasn't a night train or anything that you had compartments.
So all the rail service had completely been restored?
Yeah, it was the stations themselves that were being rebuilt. The tracks were fine, because we did get back and forth. But you could see the rebuilding of the different stations as you went by.
Mary, there was one point in our conversation about your trip over
On the boat.
on the boat that I'd like to explore a little bit, because, when we look at the cruise ships today, how
There was
plush,
nothing like that. There was nothing like that. You ate, you had a good meal and all, but they were like you were living in a dorm or something, dorm and big long tables,
wasn't
cafeteria
really-
style. It was nothing like a cruise ship. And there were no little rooms where you did anything. We didn't have anything. There was nothing, no entertainment or anything. People entertained themselves. But there was nothing that you really could go like they have now, the different floor shows and things like that. Nothing like that.
So the toilets then were like on a troop ship. Were they large? They weren't individualized.
I don't remember. See, that doesn't make an impression on me. I don't remember what they were like. But I'm sure they were like you'd find in a store now. You know what I mean? Something like that.
And the shower facilities, they weren't private, you know,
No.
they weren't in the room.
You had,
obviously.
I guess, 3 or 4 stalls, whatever it
Right.
was. It was, I mean, I guess like a troop ship would have been, because you didn't have individual rooms. We 2, 3, 4, whatever it was in a room.
Have you taken a cruise lately?
No, William doesn't like cruises.
Oh, so it's hard for you to make the comparison.
We took a cruise quite a few years back, but it wasn't anything like these big cruises either. We went with some people from FAA. It wasn't one of these princess lines or anything like that. It was a plain little cruise.
Oh, okay. But
To Nassau.
The plain little cruise, you had a private stateroom.
A private stateroom with your own bath, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That's what I was leading up to. And the accommodation were far superior to what you had going
Oh,
on.
yes, going over during the war, yes.
And the difference in food?
Oh, yeah, you ate all the time. You ate continuously.
Mary, now that you've finished your Italian cruise, and you're getting ready to get back, and it's what, 1948 now?
Yeah, it's about 47. We were gone for 3 months. We went 47 or 48. I don't remember which year it was. I think it was 47. But we were gone from July to September. We came back in September.
You then went to the American consulate, and they gave you...
Gave us a letter so we could book passage. You had to have this letter to book your passage that you could come back.
How long did it take you to get back to New York? You went straight to New York, didn't you?
Yeah, I know. They were like 6, 7 days at the time. 5, 6, 7 days. It was a long trip.
Yeah. You came back into what?
Came into New York,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you have any problem with customs coming through?
No, we didn't have any problems with customs. Everything was fine, no problem.
Where you came in New York, does it still look basically the same, or has it changed much?
I think the piers have improved. They've been building them, rebuilding them, so they look nicer than they were when we came back.
Did someone pick you up, or you took a train back?
I couldn't tell you. I don't remember. Somebody had to pick us up, or we had trunks, so I think we had the trunks shipped back to the house.
1948, you said you met your present husband, Bill Confalone.
48, 49. When we came back from Europe, so it had been 48, we probably met him at 48. My godfather's daughter knew his sister, so we met that way.
They just arranged a blind date?
No. She had come to our house for dinner, and they didn't live that far away from where we lived. And so she said, could we go to see her friend Dottie? So we said, sure. So my father drove us over. Dropped us off. No, he was out on a date. Supposedly date. It was a rainy day, and he had gone to the beach. So I don't know where he was. But when he came back, we met then. When he got back from his little excursion to the beach, in quotes.
And how did you just was a hello, how are you? Or,
Yeah, hello, how are you? Whatever it was, and that was it. And he called, and we saw each other on and off, and it wasn't anything serious or anything. We didn't see each other, and then we got together and we started going steady.
What's going steady? I don't think I've heard that term before. Well, I don't think the people of this generation have heard that term.
Term going steady, when you only see one person, and you only date one person.
Oh, you're dating
one person.
So how long did you, quote unquote, go steady?
About 2 years before we got married. Yeah, about 2 years. We married in 51.
Well, as you're aware, I interviewed your husband on this
Yes,
project,
and what
so
did he say?
He has I didn't get into his love life. We just discussed the war years.
Oh, okay.
And he's had quite a few interesting scenarios.
Yes.
Did he ever mention any of these to you?
No, he never really talked about it. He talked about the typhoons, how bad it was going through the typhoons. And we took a trip to California. We went to California, so we went to Coronado because he had trained at Coronado Beach. So we asked permission, and we got permission to go on the base. So we were on the base, and he was looking for this place because even when we went to Hawaii, he was looking for these places where they would drop you off, and he'd have to dig a hole and set up his equipment because he was a radio man, and then they time you, whatever it was, and then you came back. So we were talking to the young fellas there, but they didn't even know the kind of a ship he was on. They recognized it at all. And Bill said something, you see that land over there? He said, I think maybe that's where we train. He said, oh, and Phil said, that's our golf course. So,
Coronado Island is a very beautiful island today.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different when he was
right,
there.
yeah, because he didn't remember all these things that were there when we would. The big hotel that was there when he was there, I think.
Del Coronado.
Yeah, that was there. And I mean, he didn't recognize nice houses and stuff like that, but I mean, we took a little trip there. That was fun.
Well, how long did you go study? You never
About 2 years on and off.
Then you got engaged.
We got engaged. We were only engaged 6 months and we got married.
Oh, what year did you get married?
41. 51.
51.
51.
We lost 10 years.
Yeah, we lost
That
10 years.
wasn't bad.
51.
That's when Korea was going on, wasn't it?
Korea started then, I guess, yes. Yeah.
So they didn't try to take him back in, did they?
He just mentioned this the other day, too. We were talking to somebody. He had stayed in the Naval Reserves for a while. Then he decided he was going to get out. And luckily that he got out because they were called up. His cousin stayed in the reserves and he was called to go to Korea. Bill had gotten out of the reserves, so he didn't get to go to Korea.
So you've seen you lived in Westchester all your life now, is that correct?
Yeah.
So you've seen the big growth in Westchester County since World War II to today. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, when I went to high school and I took that club transportation bus up to Roosevelt High School, there was nothing along Central Avenue. The Hillview Reservoir was there, and the Yonkers Racetrack. Then across the street there was a diner on the corner. Back that, the boy that's father owned that diner was in my graduating class, except he got killed riding his bicycle a month before graduation.
So from the corner of Yonkers Avenue all the way to White Plains?
It was desolate. You saw there was a golf course up near Roosevelt, but up above all you saw were trees, and there is a up on the left side, I don't think it's called Scarsdale, I can't think of the name of but there are garden apartments. They were there when we went to school because somebody from our class lived in there. But other than that, you didn't see anything, and you could go all the way up to White Plains, and it was trees on each side. You didn't see things.
No shopping centers?
No shopping centers, no nothing.
No gas stations?
Very few gas stations. But it was desolate all the way up that way. In fact, even Tuckahoe Road, there was nothing on Tuckahoe Road.
Back how far?
When I went to school, there was nothing around there. Then when we moved to where we live now, there was they were just starting to build the thruway. It hadn't gotten up to where we were yet. It was just about coming up that way. There was a very nice restaurant that we went to, 55, I guess in 1955, but that isn't there anymore, and I can't remember the name of it either. But there was nothing on Tuckahoe Road, and I mean, you had very few things. And all of a sudden now you got a little shopping center here, a little shopping center on this corner, shopping center on the other corner. So got a lot of things on on Tuckahoe Road now too, except for Grandma's Pies were down there.
Okay.
Grandma's Pies were there.
I remember that in about the early 50s, where on Mountaindale Road they built that big subdivision in the back.
Yes.
All the veterans moved in with their young families.
My cousin had gotten married then too, and he bought one of the houses up on Mountaindale Road. He did. He was in the Air Force. And then he had gotten married. He had a house there on a corner.
So the great growth period in Yonkers then,
It was in the
or Westchester
50s.
County,
It
was
was in the
right
50s,
after the
yeah.
war.
After the war they all came. Because on McLean Avenue, going up towards Central Avenue, they had Quonset huts there where the veterans came back to live in Quonset huts on McLean Avenue. Forgot about that?
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, the Quonset huts that were there where they lived in for a while. Because they had to build.
Right.
And that's when they started Levittown, because all the guys went out to Levittown to live.
They say what made the economy great was the GI Bill. Did that GI Bill have any effect on your life?
Oh, it helped us because it got billed through college. Part of it, we had to pay for the rest of it, but at least part of it was taken care of by the GI Bill.
What did Bill obtain? What kind of degree did he obtain?
He went to CCNY and he graduated from CCNY and then he went to law school.
What year did he get CCNY?
We were married. He was supposed to graduate from CCNY and go into law school the year we were married or the year after. The year after. That'd be 52. He was supposed to go in September of... Well, he did go in September. We were married in 51. That September he couldn't get in. He got in February of 52. He got into law school. But when we were married that September he was missing one credit or something from public speaking course or something like that. So we had to take that course. So then he went to law school in 52, February of 52.
What do you feel life would have been like without that GI Bill?
It would have been very hard to go to college because we didn't, when I tell our kids that he made $3,000 a year, I made $2,000 or $3,000 a year, they laugh at you because they expect such big salaries nowadays. But that's what you had to live on at that point. I mean, things were, you didn't make the money you had today. But of course, then I could go to the butcher and get a meat for a week for $10 for the two of us. In that respect too. Now you can buy one piece of meat for $10. And sometimes it's even more than that. So it would have been very difficult.
So when did Bill graduate as an attorney?
In 55.
And started his practice?
No, he worked for the government. He had a private practice on the side, but he worked for the government. And he kept that job, which was very good.
Did many of the veterans after World War II take advantage of GI Bill, do you know?
I think so. I think a lot of them. I think that's how some of them got their houses and all. They went to Levittown. They built that whole community out there. I think when they first started, I think they were all veterans out that way. Because they saved their money and that's how they got there.
So that in your lifetime, you didn't see the growth in the early years or before the war as you've seen after the war.
Oh, after the war.
GI Bill, when the effects of it came about.
When everything came and everybody started building because they all came back and they needed a place to live, then you started seeing everything grow and build.
Mary, we've taken you to 1955 when your husband Bill got out of law school. Let's go back a little bit to World War II. When the war ended, everybody was very happy. How were the GIs, the vets, received when they came back?
Oh, they were received very well. I mean, everybody was very happy to see them come back. There were flag raising, everybody was parades, and everybody was whooping it all up for them. But nothing after.
Was that what it was like after the Korean War, 50 to 53?
No, we just saw nothing with the Korean War or the Vietnam War. I mean, people, you sort of, they were forgotten. They were forgotten guys. They did nothing for them.
So they didn't get the same
They didn't get any of the
benefits
benefits that the World War II veterans got. No, they had nothing. I think that's what they're arguing and fighting about right now. Don't they want rights now, the same as the others got?
What about the little bit different with the Persian Gulf?
Persian Gulf War, that didn't last very long, and everybody was very happy about that. I mean, they seemed more related and stuff, but the other two wars really were nothing. No, there was a lot of dissension, and people argued about it.
Well, you're very fortunate because, well, not fortunate, you've experienced this country getting slapped twice.
Mm-hmm.
Once during Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And just recently, the
9/11.
9/11 and the World Trade Center. Can you give me your feelings on that in comparison to Pearl Harbor?
I think it did the same thing with Pearl Harbor. It brought the country together a lot. I mean, everybody talked about it, everybody wanted to do something. The same thing with World War II. When Pearl Harbor, everybody was get on the bandwagon. And same thing with 9/11, everybody get on the bandwagon. We have to do this, we have to do that. Can't let this happen again and all this. Whereas those other two wars you didn't hear anything about. These two we were hit home, at home.
Well, I don't remember Pearl Harbor. I was
Okay.
too young to remember that.
Okay.
But what did you feel was the difference between, you see one incident occur where they attacked the ships in Pearl versus innocent civilians? I mean, can you give me a little?
Well, that point was a little different because we lost a lot of men at Pearl Harbor, and everybody had somebody. Whereas here, it was just New York. Whereas that was all over the country. People were from all over the country. Here it was just New York. People that worked and lived in New York that were hit. I mean, and I think the other people came to our rally. Everybody felt bad for us. But it wasn't the same as Pearl Harbor. There was Kaiser building his ships one a day. He'd turn out. Everybody was rallying. You had Rosie the Riveter and all the gals going to work. I mean, everybody really pulled together because that was a big thing. It affected everybody in the country. 9/11 affected the country, but really because they felt so bad about it. But it was really New York that had buildings demolished and lost a lot of its people because they were living here.
Was the outrage the same, even though it was civilian versus military people in Pearl Harbor?
I think so. The outrage was very great this time, and it was then too. Really bad days. Bad day. 2 bad days.
Well, Mary, if you had an opportunity to say something to your descendants, which you're going to say right now, regarding war, what would you say to them regarding war?
It's a bad time, a bad place. I don't know. I really don't. I would hope they wouldn't have to go through it. It's not nice.
Mary, as we were saying before, you're giving a message to your descendants. What message are you going to give them about war?
I would hope they would never have to go through it because it's not a happy time, and that they should try to have people that can talk instead of bearing arms, which would be much better than having to send your kids to war.
What if war came?
If war came, you pick up your arms and you go. Whatever you have to do, you do. We've done it in this country for so many years, different wars. You go pick up and you go, you do it. You have to do your part, so you do it. Nothing else you can do. You don't hold back, you go.
Mary, I want to thank you very much. I find it very interesting talking to people that have lived during trying times. Thank you again.
Thank you.